Behind the Ballot, where politics meets real life. We break down state and federal policy issues, showing how policy shapes everyday Americans. Engaged, balanced, and informative. That's our promise. I'm your host, Mikkel Jenkins.
This is Muhammad Alec chiming in alongside Mikel. They we don't really have too much anything after. I was gonna say we don't have anything crazy to say today, and I only say
There's
that
some
in
things out
comparison.
there.
I would say that in comparison to what we talked about last time with the Venezuela invasion, kind of hard to top that in terms of craziness. You know what I mean?
Yeah, definitely more on the economic and legal side of things for these developments for this podcast. Obviously, there have been some global developments and shifts that have happened, especially on the political sides of things. We are going to start on the political side of everything that's been going on since we last spoke to you all this past Thursday. So politically, there's a new high of 45% in U.S. identity identify as political independence. So in 2025, a record high of 45% of U.S. adults identified as political independents, surpassing the previous highs of 43% recorded in 2014, 2023, and 2024. This represents a substantial shift from 2 decades ago, when approximately one third of Americans rejected affiliation with the two major parties. Meanwhile, equal proportions of 27% identified as Democrats or Republicans. Among independents, leanings favored Democrats, with 20% leaning Democratic, 15% leaning Republican, and 10% remaining pure independents without leaning. When accounting for these leanings, 47% of adults aligned with Democrat or leaned Democratic, compared to 40% for Republicans, marking the first Democratic advantage in a party affiliation since 2021. So we are seeing these major shifts, but instead now from the MAGA camp and from the conservative camp switching over, which we saw in the November elections, we are now actually seeing independents starting to roll over into leaning Democrats. And we knew that was going to happen just given how these 13 months have gone for the Trump administration and how some of his key allies, whether they're in the media or actually within his administration or in government, have continuously spoken out against him. And then looking at overall his approval rating, Donald Trump's net approval rating currently stands at about 16, well, stands at 16%, reflecting a slight improvement of a low negative 18%. So basically, he's been down.
Negative
Yeah, he's been down
16%. Just
negative
want to make that
16.
clear. You said
Yeah.
16% like it was
Yeah, it was
positive.
negative 16%, and then also 18% from where he originally was in November, actually. And still looking at his second term numbers, they're still not as great overall. And then as of January 13th, 2026, 40% of Americans approve of his performance, 56 disapprove, and 5% are unsure. I'm sure that 5% of unsure will be shifting into one of those two camps within the upcoming months as his administration heats up on a wide range of areas and issues. And this rating has fluctuated throughout his term, reaching a low of negative 19% as low as in November 2025, which was lower than any point in his previous presidency. So he's still doing worse than his first term, because his first term, as I stated previously on the podcast, was more about the actual blue collar worker,
Economy.
actual economy, actually
Yeah.
wanting to get things done. Where now it's on the flip side, he's working for the billionaire class, the billionaire party, and also his special interests that have given money to him, just as most politicians sometimes do. He's doing it hand over fist, and we are seeing it across the board. And just as all of these numbers are coming out from how individuals are leaning more Democrat and Trump's approval rating, we also have another House Republican who is calling it quits. Florida Representative Neil Dunn, a five-term House Republican, announced his retirement. citing a desire to pass the torch to a new conservative leaders and spend more time with his family in Panama City. This move adds to a growing list of House Republicans opting out of what is anticipated to be a challenging midterm election cycle for the party in power. Similarly, Texas Representative Troy Niels, a staunch Trump ally, is seeking re-election in 2026 after discussion with his family over Thanksgiving dinner. Emphasizing a focus on returning home, Niels informed Trump of his decision beforehand, joining numerous members from both parties who are either pursuing higher office or exiting politics entirely. So we can really see a
The Republican House majority just keeps getting slimmer and
yeah, I think
slimmer.
Polymarket has it at 77% for the Democrats to take back the House, and I think we're sitting at around 30 to 35% to take back the Senate as well, which both are likely. There have been numerous times when the Democrats have had all three branches of government. So this could potentially be the next one if everything works out for the Democrats in 2026. But all the numbers are pointing to that. Really, they just need to hone in on those issues and keep sticking to the kitchen counter issues and stem away from all the nonsense that Trump has been out there touting. And
Yeah, no, I'm excited to see where they go with this. I definitely do agree with the idea that the Democrats will take the House in 2026. It's just it's the majority is too thin for the Republicans to really be able to maintain it and too volatile. The Senate will be interesting though. I'm more interested to see what happens with the Senate.
yeah, Senate will
They
be
I don't think
very
with
interesting.
I don't I
Mhm.
there's a few Republicans that consistently vote against Trump in the Senate, like Rand Paul, Josh Hawley, and a few others. Sometimes even Lisa Murkowski. I think I have her name right. The
Yeah, Lisa
Republican
from
senator
Maine,
from
Murkowski.
Maine.
Yeah.
Yeah, and so it'll be interesting to see what they decide to do because if impeachment proceedings come up, which they will once the Democrats have the House, it'll be interesting to see if those can actually result in Trump being impeached. I think, gut feeling, when the Republicans start seeing the writing on the wall being extremely obvious and clear where the country's going, I think they'll throw Trump under the
Yeah, they'll
bus
definitely throw him
100%.
under the bus. I mean, even more recently with his repeated threats to sue and replace Fed Chair Jerome Powell.
Jerome Powell.
So pretty sure our listeners have seen in the news. If they have not, President Donald Trump has repeatedly threatened legal action against Federal Reserve Jerome Powell. And also, for those who don't know, Trump was the individual to put Jerome Powell in his post as well, by the way. So Trump is citing
It's
his
so
yeah,
funny
it's
to
so
me.
funny that video, and he's like, "Oh, like who could have picked Jerome Powell?" And then there's the video of him actually like with Jerome Powell and pointing him. So it's like that dementia is
Yeah.
starting to sink in, I would say.
I mean, dementia might be a politician's best friend because, let's be honest here, most voters really not I don't I hate to say goldfish memory, but the moment something happens more than a year ago, they just forget it happened. Like all of a sudden, hell, we've seen even people get gaslit into believing that that ICE agent was under life and death threat when he killed that woman in cold blood.
Yeah,
So like, you got a large swath of people who are willing to bend their morals and their views based off what their favorite politician is telling them. And then you've got also people who are just willing to not even willing, but easily swayed because they just don't even care nor remember what happened years
yeah.
past.
No, literally. I mean, I've the rep that I worked for, it was like that same situation. He was very on top of it when it came to constituents and things of that nature. But sometimes you're meeting almost 1,000 plus people. I mean, I would say almost 2,000 plus people a year. So sometimes it is hard to keep up with a lot of those issues and stuff. And that's really why you need to have great staff that stays on top of those things and also make sure you're abreast and are staying urgently aware of what's going on. Um, and then going back to Trump trying to continually sue and threaten Jerome Powell. So he is citing incompetence, particularly in managing the construction of the Fed buildings, which he claims cost $4 billion instead of a $50 billion fix-up. In remarks at Mar-a-Lago on December 9th, 2025, Trump stated his administration was considering a suit against Powell for incompetence and called him grossly incompetent. On True
Grossly
Social,
incompetent.
yeah, grossly
Trump
incompetent. The guy
calling
that
someone
he
grossly
appointed.
incompetent is hilarious.
Crazy. It's crazy. And then on True Social in August of 2025, Trump criticized Powell as too late Powell. You know how he loves those little nicknames here and there for his adversaries, and he also suggested allowing a major lawsuit over the building costs. Trump has also called for Powell's resignation or firing, labeling him as continuing to be incompetent during events like the U.S. Saudi investment forum, which took place in November of 2025, and tying it to mortgage rates and building expenses. These threats precede the Justice Department's investigation into the Fed. And as Trump has called for these investigations, a growing number of Republican lawmakers, including the Senate Banking Committee members, voice opposition to the Justice Department investigation into the Federal Reserve, warning that it undermines the central bank's independence. Senator Lisa Murkowski, who we were just talking about, described the probe as nothing more than an attempt at coercion. So while House Financial Services Committee Chair French Hill called it a unnecessary distraction, Senator Tom Tillis accused the administration of eroding the Fed's independence and pledging to block any future Fed nominees from the president until the matter is resolved. Other Republicans, such as Majority Leader Thune, urged a quick resolution, and several on the banking committee expressed alarm. Though Chairman Tim Scott has remained silent amid efforts to advance cryptocurrency legislation. So we're starting to really see the Republicans stand up against Trump. We have two major instances of this. The first instance, and I believe, was the ACA subsidies, which you had 17 Republicans in the House, 9 Democrats in the Senate join Republicans for that bill to be passed, so that our listeners and and the constituents that they serve are able to have affordable premiums and not have skyrocketing healthcare costs during this 2026 year. And then this is now the second instance where he is throwing this frivolous lawsuit against Jerome Powell, someone that he put in place, and now Republicans are backing off against him and what he's trying to do, understanding that this guy's only here for 3 more years, and
Feels
if he keeps
crazy
going
that
on the
it's
crusade,
only
it's
been
gonna
a
get worse. It's gonna
year.
get worse. Yeah, it's gonna get
It
way
feels
worse, Mom.
crazy that it's only been 1 year of this second
1 year,
Trump
and
term.
yeah, I mean, every
Oh
time I
my
think about it,
god.
I'm like, Biden didn't seem this long. Obama's 8 years didn't seem this long. I guess
At
just being
all.
older and more affected by it, and now like reporting it on a
Basically, a
dual weekly
2
basis, I would
times a
say.
week basis at least,
Like
yeah.
it still seems a lot. I mean, every time I open up Twitter, there is something from the Trump administration, whether it's good or bad, um, just about what's going on. That's something in previous administrations that we have not seen. Not even, I feel like, with Trump's first term, mind you. We were in college. I was in college for that term, so that did
I
go a
was a
little
year
quicker.
under you. I was in college too.
So he was
It
president
was
15
2016
to
to
16.
2020. He was basically
So
there the
yeah,
entire time we were in college.
yeah. So I was basically a sophomore at that point, freshman or
Yeah,
sophomore,
he was there my
going
entire
into.
college term. I remember it was my freshman year when they were holding elections at the college, and I didn't vote because I wasn't registered to vote at the college. I was registered to vote back in my hometown.
Had to do that absentee ballot, man.
Yeah, well, I didn't know at that time, but no,
No,
it's
yeah,
kind of crazy how thinking about it, almost half of my life, Trump's been involved in politics. And it's something that I'm very excited to not have to deal with after this term going forward. And I
yeah,
think a big reason why it has been felt like feeling like such a long time since he's been elected his second term is because there's just been so much interesting slash radical changes being applied to what's going on. I mean, even Obama, with all his drone striking, wasn't killing Americans in the street in the name of immigration, you know? Uh,
well, I would say even with his levels of immigration, he deported more people than Trump and Biden combined, and did it without having this much flare up in the media and even in online course. Most people didn't even know. that he was doing it. And even after his presidency, a lot of people didn't know. So the fact that he was able to do it so overtly, getting millions and millions of immigrants out of the country without firing shots, without going door to door, things of that nature, really show how really incompetent, you could say, the Trump administration's immigration arm has been in trying to show strength and force. Because
I
Obama was
mean,
able to show strength and silence by removing the most immigrants within a 8-year time span.
I know that a big thing of what Trump's been doing is that what Biden deported more illegals than Trump as well. And
Yeah.
what they would do is that when people would cross the border, if they were illegal, they just send them right back, and that counted as deporting illegals. But because under Trump and his rhetoric, a lot of less people have been crossing the border in general. So with all that happening, it makes sense that less people coming in, less people you can deport. And that wouldn't be an issue if you weren't going around shooting American citizens and murdering them because of your agents being so poorly trained in what they do
Yeah.
that they retort to murder because they feel panicked. I'm like, if I murdered somebody every time I felt like some like adrenaline kick in, then that would be quite a issue for society if everyone did that. You can't just murder someone the moment you think, oh well, hey, this is not a situation I agreed to be in. Let me just do what I think's best, which is kill the person who's also involved in the situation. And it's a big issue. And saw for the first time that ICE actually has a majority support to abolish them compared to ever before. And ICE is a fairly new organization. I believe ICE was made during the after 9/11. I'm fairly sure. It
Hmm.
wasn't something that was existing for a large part of Americans' history. It's literally new to this century. And it's a big thing of it used to just be included in Department of Homeland Security, like immigration in the country, but then they made it their own task force. And then from there, actually, especially under Trump, they've been taking a lot of Department of Homeland Security, which is under Christy Noam. They've been
Yeah.
taking a lot of their resources and putting it into ICE. So like entire DHS task forces related to, let's say, fraudulent crime in the country, or drug counterfeiting, currency counterfeiting or drug peddling in the country. All these things are just going into ICE and being forced to be part of this organization. And these people are being paid fat money to
Yeah.
just do this job. So these people are gladly doing what they're told to do because they're making money doing it.
Yep.
And it's like, dude, it's like six figures a year just to be an ICE agent. And when you only need 45 days of training and a high school diploma, like, it makes
A lot of
sense why
people
there's
are
so
going to
many
be
people
taking
signing
that
up
job.
for it. Like, "Oh, yeah,
Yeah.
dude, make 6 figures, and you don't even really have to do anything to achieve 6 figures." Like, "Yeah, dude, let me go and do this 47 days of training because Trump wanted to make it 47 days because he's the 47th president." It's ridiculous.
No,
And
it's completely ridiculous.
it is. And I think a big reason why he's trying to get over, like, trying to push more policy in right now, like the 10% interest cap on credit cards, is because he knows and is aware of how the wind's been blowing based off his and his administration's decisions
Oh,
on
yeah.
things like this.
Yeah.
Like, this ICE murder is not going to go down easy. Like,
Oh,
don't get me wrong, there's a lot of Republicans and a lot of Democrats who are willing to suck toe, and lick heel for the politician in power. But this is a line that also a good bit of those people who are willing to abide by the politician in power because it favors them are going to say, listen, even though I agree with this guy, this is kind of screwed up.
yeah. No, it's completely screwed up. And with Trump and what Muhammad was kind of mentioning earlier about dementia, I would say with Trump there is a new, how could I say this, video or instance out there that has sparked some individuals stating that he has had small flickers of dementia. I'm sure everyone remembers when Trump was touting the $2,000 tariff dividend checks. Apparently, he was speaking with someone. It was an interview, and he was basically saying that he did not remember, stating that or anything of that nature, or saying, when did I say that, or how would I even do that, things of a nature. But it's because obviously he knows, he knows that the Supreme Court is going to strike down his tariffs as unconstitutional, and we will that ruling is slated to be tomorrow. So on Thursday, we will have a breakdown of what happened, what was said, and our thoughts. But me and Muhammad are both on the same line that we believe that these tariffs are going to be struck down as unconstitutional, and Donald Trump will have to pay this money back to
He's gonna
importers
throw
and
a
or to
damn
the American people.
tantrum.
What was that?
I, he's gonna throw a tantrum. I don't
Oh, he's
think
gonna throw
he'll
such
be.
a tantrum.
I don't think he'll pay it back to the American people. I think what'll likely happen is that he'll have to pay the money back to the countries that were either required to take them in, because it's too much of
Yeah,
a difficult economic formula to figure out how that cost fell down to the people. But it's very easy to see, like, oh, well, you put a 25% tariff on India. Cool, and then just pay 25% of of the goods imported in under India for those goods in the last XYZ amount of time since the tariff kicked in. And it would not be good for him if that happens.
no, like if you have this, and then we'll touch on it when we get to the global side of things. But ExxonMobil coming out and basically stating that Venezuela is uninvestable as well, and companies starting to come out and stating the same thing. Yeah, these next few months he may be having a big, huge tantrum, and also picking up to what Muhammad was saying about some of the pieces of legislation that, while that Trump is now moving towards more policy sides of things, there is there is language out there for a new reconciliation mega bill 2.0. So the Republican Study Committee unveiled a framework for a new party line reconciliation bill dubbed Mega Bill 2.0, aimed at reducing housing and healthcare costs through 1.6 trillion in government spending cuts. Such the Republican, such a
This is
regular Republican
this is
conservative.
what I'll
Like,
add. I am all for government spending cuts because we do waste a lot of money on the federal government side. But they'll be like, "Oh, we should cut spending for the federal government." And they'll be like 1.6 trillion. Half of that from Medicare, and then the other half will be from
right.
social benefits. And at
And
the same
mind you,
time, we'll give tax cuts to the rich.
while
I'm
he's
like, dude,
asking
so
for
you
the
wanna cut
yeah,
benefits and you wanna give tax cuts to the rich. So you wanna screw over the working class in favor of the rich. I'm like, this isn't gonna do anything. You're gonna lower the amount of revenue you bring in while also fucking over screwing over the working class. Like, this
yeah,
is it just blows my mind how there's so many good ideas of cutting spending for the federal government. For example, I've mentioned this in prior episodes, but it's really a big deal. And because of Doge, it's come into the spotlight quite a bit more. And it is that there is a lot of NGOs and charitable organizations that take money from the federal government that spend most of that money they get on things that aren't actually their mission. So, like, let's just
yeah,
say like an organization that's about dealing with sickle cell anemia in Africa. Less than 10% of that money they get is going to go to actually stopping sickle cell anemia in Africa. The other 90 plus percent is going to go to salaries, marketing, and all that stuff. Like, if these people can't use their money for what it should be used for, why are we giving it to them in the first place?
yeah,
Great complaint. And, and let's just say go even further, like government organizations. Like, I've heard people complain about, military members complain about the VA. Like, if these people are getting so much money, MJ, Mikhail, the VA, Veterans Affairs, gets more than around triple the money that the NHS, National Health. I forget what the S stands for. It's not Secretary, National Health something in England, the NHS,
mhm.
and the VA gets about triple the budget for
Is it
NHS.
National Health Society?
I think it might be society,
NHS?
but society doesn't feel right. It's
It doesn't
NHS. I
roll
know
off
it's
the tongue,
NHS,
right?
but society doesn't feel right, but it might be that. And the VA gets almost triple their budget and covers less than half of the patients that NHS covers. And the NHS has arguably better coverage than the VA because the VA covers a lot of things that are on the administrative side. So just
Mhm.
basically like a lot of these bureaucrats getting money for just to get money and be part of the system. And it reminds me a lot of how in Argentina, for example, it's just a very extreme example, but generally the extreme examples really help you put things into an obvious limelight, is that there were people who were getting paid by the government to do jobs that weren't necessarily needed, like, for example, private taxi drivers for high-ranking government officials. Like, these weren't needed, but these people, because they were getting this money, were voting a certain way that would assure that they were voting to keep their jobs in place. And so it's a big question of like, well, clearly it makes sense that we want to cut spending in these areas where these people are getting money that isn't actually going to go to the benefit of the American people. But like, are the conservatives actually going to cut that spending, or are they just going to cut the spending that actually helps Americans and then cut taxes for the rich? And they always cut social benefits while cutting taxes for
Oh,
the
yeah.
rich.
It's always
Always,
social benefits are
always.
gonna be the first thing to go, but mind you, he's also calling for, I think is I could have the number wrong, but I think it's a 50% increase in the, military budget, which we all know for reasonings for that, so that that budget can somehow be siphoned off to go to ICE to ramp up more of this strength nonsense that he is trying to show off. And going back to the mega bill, key proposals include the Dawn payment for for zero low down payment mortgages, tax advantaged health freedom accounts for direct federal insurance subsidies, accelerated permitting to lower energy costs, and refilling the strategic oil reserve with discounted Venezuelan oil. This plan emerges amid GOP efforts to have policy via the budget reconciliation process, with hardliners also pushing amendments such as stripping funding from the National Endowment of Democracy in the government funding bills. I don't
Yeah,
think
I'm
we
working on
lose.
getting my camera back on.
Oh
I'm
yeah,
just
perfect. I just wanted to
my
make
cat.
sure you were still there. Perfect, perfect.
Yeah, no, I'm still here. My cat turned it off
No, you're
by
fine.
being a
Well, we're
cat.
going to go into the next section here. But as more of those developments on the political side continue to develop, we will be sure that you guys can join us live and hear our perspectives and really what's going on behind the issues and behind the ballot. So, looking at legal, Muhammad is back. Thank you. And looking on the legal side, I just got to do his mic real quick.
This is my girl
There
cat.
we go.
Wait, there we go. Yeah, this is here. Admit guilt, Cleo.
You say dogs don't be taking out your cameras, taking out your
Nah, but look
mics.
how cute
They
she
just be
is.
chilling.
Look how
They just
cute
be
she is.
chilling. They
Oh, look
just
how
be
cute she
chilling.
is. Oh
They
my
just
god, I
be
love her
chilling.
so much. No, Cleo, you gotta admit. You say you're sorry. Okay, she said she's sorry. All right.
So real only two things here really for the legal side of things. One, of course, I believe this is the third or fourth week since the DOJ was supposed to release all of the
Release the
Epstein
Epstein
files.
files. Massey
Um,
has filed with a court, I believe. I forget which court it
Yeah, he
was.
filed with a court. We were reporting on that on
Yeah,
Thursday or Tuesday. I forget which day it was, but yes, he did file with a court. I believe it was holding Pam Bondi in contempt of Congress. I believe,
she
or
is
something of that
going to
nature. But she
so
definitely
much.
should be.
She's
I
going
think.
to. Dude.
Yeah, I think she's going to be realistic. I think her or Christy Nome will be the first individuals to be put out of the Trump administration, because I've
Mhm.
heard that the president is very underwhelmed and bothered by Pam Bondi's performance so far. So, starting with the Epstein files, so the House GOP seeks to hold Bill Clinton and Hillary Clinton in contempt for seeking Epstein deposition. House Republicans, led by Oversight Committee Chair James Comer, are moving to hold former President Bill Clinton in contempt of Congress for refusing to testify in the Jeffrey Epstein investigation. This escalates a months long dispute, with Comer emphasizing that no wrongdoing is alleged, but questions remain, and threatening referral to the Justice Department for prosecution. Hillary Clinton Hillary Clinton is also involved in the refusal as well, and that refusal is to speak to the Oversight Committee in this deposition format.
Yeah, I
Speaker
couldn't.
Mike Johnson
That was an
supports.
interesting headline when
Yeah.
I saw that both the Clintons refused to testify.
Yeah, so the chair says that there's no wrongdoing is alleged, but there's just questions will be remained. So I mean, if I'm even them, I probably would not either because yes, there's no alleged wrongdoing. Yes, there may be questions unanswered, but you're not catching me sitting in that limelight because even though there is nothing alleged, people will just continue to try to tie you to it, and you'll get nothing but smeared in the media for months to come. So that is something that I would not do as well. So Speaker Mike Johnson supports the contempt resolution, stating that defying a subpoena constitutes contempt and signaling he would bring it to the House floor if it advances through committee. Now, if I'm not mistaken, I could be completely wrong, but I believe there was individuals on the GOP side of things that were not following through with subpoenas of that nature when Biden was in office. So we'll have to definitely look into that and to see to get better accurate information to make sure that that actually is the case. But yes, if I was Hillary Clinton and or Bill Clinton, I would not be answering that subpoena truthfully. Republicans don't think that they aren't above the law. So if I'm Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton, I am not answering that subpoena. They can keep sending them and keep the intent of Congress because I'm not going to be answering questions if I were them. If there is no alleged wrongdoing, I do not need to come in.
Honestly, if I had the chance, if I was an old rich man who was gonna die relatively soon, who had the chance to throw other people under the bus, I absolutely would. Like, let the world burn. You know what I mean? Like, I was gonna say Joker mentality from The Dark Knight, but not even that. Like, if the truth allows the really causes chaos, then allow the truth to come out. And I mean, I can see why, totally why Bill and Hillary wouldn't do it. Absolutely see why, and like I understand the reasoning.
Yeah.
But like for the plot, it'd be exciting, wouldn't it? Like
Oh
it
yeah,
would just be
it
fun.
definitely would be exciting to see what would they say, having them on the the screens and the cameras in front of the representatives and members of Congress, of course. And but there's also another legal development that's going to be even more exciting than that, honestly, for the Democrats. We could say ex special to publicly testify about Trump investigations. Former special counsel Jack Smith, and mind you, we did report this last week as well. So, former special counsel Jack Smith is scheduled to testify publicly on January 22nd, 2026, before the House Judiciary Committee about his investigations into President Donald Trump, which led to two indictments. Committee Chair Jim Jordan confirmed the hearing, noting Smith's team requested a public format. The appearance is a part of a congressional probe into Smith's work on Trump's efforts to subvert the 2020 election, setting the stage for a detailed retelling of the probe. Now, if I'm not mistaken, that Poly Market, we'll just call it a prop, was basically saying that Donald Trump would be impeached by March, or at least I think it was like out of office or something like that. So, depending upon what Jack Smith states, I'm going to definitely be listening to it. Don't know really what he's going to say or how much he'll speak to that Steele dossier and all the nonsense with Russiagate and how it ties into what Trump was trying to do with the 2020 election. I'm sure, I mean, 2024 election. I mean, yeah, 2020 election, sorry. And I'm sure that the call that he made to Georgia to try to get them to flip the votes is going to be something of subject matter as well. Because that was actually a recorded conversation of him basically trying to get I believe it was the Secretary of State from Georgia to basically just say, oh, it's fraud. We need to relook at the ballots and just give him the numbers that he wanted for that state. So we will be seeing what's going on with that.
And what's crazy to me amongst this all as well is that the whole big thing about conservatives is they're about to supposed to represent small federal government and state rights, and yet you have them bending over backwards to support somebody who is saying and trying to flex federal powers over state elections. And for those who don't know, State elections is a very big thing that the founding fathers explicitly mentioned and outlined as a thing specific to the states because they knew the dangers of having the federal government being able to control elections for unique specific states. Now, that's one big reason why, as you may have seen, even if the federal government tries to ban mail-in ballots, they can't because
Yeah.
states set their own laws. And we've seen that on the Trump side of things where they try to ban mail-in ballots, and we've actually seen it in a few states where they have actually tried to ban them.
Hmm.
I'm blanking on the specific states. It's been a while since it's been in the news, and I'm drawing a blank here, actually, sadly. But it's something that while the federal government can put pressure on the states to do so, they can't force them to adopt these laws unless the states themselves agree to it. So then to have a Republican president say like, "Hey, federal government calling in, you should say these election votes are invalid
Yeah.
because of my demands." It's like this is very unconservative. This is not what conservatives stand for, and it's surprised to see why people are so why the conservative GOP members are growing fed up with this.
No, without a doubt. I mean, it only makes sense. Only makes sense that looking at the legal side of things and how he is, portraying on the political side of things, how he has been stepping, that a lot of Republicans are now starting to step up and really take back their party, which they should have been doing that a long time ago, and it should have started after January 6th, realistically, but it didn't. And now they are having all of the repercussions from that. And what we will see is a complete blue wave come in and take place. And then I want to go into the economic side of things as we go into these last 30 minutes here. So apparently, well, not apparently now, but buying a home is 150% more expensive now than it is in 2019.
Yeah, I don't think anybody would say apparently, like, they would
Yeah,
like,
not
"Yeah,
apparently.
absolutely true." Yeah.
Absolutely true. And so apparently Trump's plan to shut out institutional investors could raise costs even more. So home prices surged over 150% since nearly 2019, with mortgage rates rising from about 3.7 to 6.2%, rendering home ownership almost unaffordable for three-quarters of US households, according to the National Association of Home Builders. President Trump on January 6, 2026 proposal bans institutional investors from buying single family homes, aiming to curb what he views as a key driver for price increases. And mind you, it was reported earlier that he was stating that it was illegal immigrants that were allowing for those price increases in homes. So now we're really seeing the true indicator that's built into all of that. It's really the investment and these private equity firms that are now going in and buying all these small homes.
And, I'm sorry, she's been very clingy today, so I like to have her in the mic. But, I wanna add to that. I remember when we were initially discussing the claim that illegal immigrants were the reason why housing prices were going so far up, and I was like, "That's just BS." And I'm sure there are some illegal immigrants buying houses, but the biggest issue is that there's just not enough houses being built. And on top of that, interest has been, I mean, we're in stagflation right now. This was Jerome Powell's greatest nightmare. What he was trying to set all the rates up was, yeah, I'm afraid stagflation is going to kick in, where we're still going to be dealing with inflation, and inflation is going to get worse, but we're going to be stagnating as an economy. Like, if we're going to be dealing with inflation, the economy is supposed to be getting better and better. And then when the
Yeah.
economy comes down and the value of the dollar goes down, we deflate. That's supposed to how it's supposed to work in an ideal circumstance. But right now is not that ideal circumstance. And I really do think that at the moment, it's also shown that there's more houses being sold than being bought. More home sellers in the market than home buyers since the Great Recession. So it's just
Yeah.
overall a very unhealthy looking outcome for the market. And I do think that we've been talking about this for a bit, and it's like the argument with the bubble is always this. You may see it's there, but predicting when it'll pop is a totally separate thing.
Yeah.
And we were seeing these warning signs of like a weakening economy, seeing these warning signs of the AI bubble possibly popping. I mean, China taking over Taiwan, that would devastate US AI companies.
Well, now them um, canceling the amount of chips that they're buying, H200 chips as well. That was stated after the whole Venezuela military intervention, we'll call that. So yeah, a lot of things are going to start taking shape within the economy because not only do you have homes 150% priced out by Americans who can't even afford a home, and now medium home age is almost at 45. You also have US workers taking home less of what they produce than ever. So the labor share of US GDP, representing the portion of economic output allocated to workers via wages, salaries, bonuses, and benefits, has dropped to a record low of 53.8% in the third quarter of 2025, down from 54.6% the prior quarter and below 2020's average of 55.6%. Since 2001, this share has declined by 10.4 percentage points, while after-tax corporate profit margins have risen to 10.9%, the second highest on record. This trend indicates that increased worker productivity is increasingly captured by corporations rather than reflected in paychecks, squeezing American workers as their portion of the national income hits historic lows since tracking began in 1947. So not only do you now
Not
have
looking good.
prices being, I mean, houses being outpriced. I think we were reporting that most first-time home buyers are at least 30,000 outside of less than what they need for closing costs, and everything. Workers aren't taking home the amount of money that they produce in a corporation. And now the third piece we have here that the consumer price index for December 2025 showed an annual inflation at 2.7%, unchanged from November and in line with expectations remaining above the Federal Reserve's 2% target. So core CPI, excluding food and energy, rose 2.6% below the anticipated 2.7%, while both headline and core measures have been flat month over month. A recent decline in the unemployment rate has reduced expectation for rate cuts at the January Fed meeting as inflation persists amid stable economic indicators. And then with Trump and Powell going at it back and forth, it seems he is tapping JP Morgan CFO. Sorry, not tapping the JP Morgan CFO. That's actually regarding to what the stats the JP Morgan CFO was stating regarding Trump's cap on credit card interest rates and how it will impact the United States consumer and economy. So yes, Mohammed did state that Trump is now looking to cap the percentage of interest rates on credit cards. I believe it's 10%. And then the CFO at JP Morgan warned that a proposed 10% cap on credit card interest rates would harm U.S. consumers and the economy, stating it would be very bad and require significant changes to the bank's business, including cutbacks. So this follows President Trump's one-year cap proposal starting January 20th, which impacted banking stocks. So Barnum, who is the JP Morgan CFO, emphasized adverse effects on consumer access and economic instability will be coming if this is implemented. Mohammed, what are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I think if you tell a man who sells, gunpowder for a living that they're going to limit how much gunpowder you can sell to one person, they'd be like, well, clearly this is going to affect sales. And gunpowder isn't the best example, to be honest, but more so, let me say it like this. Actually, this is a better example. You tell a man whose business is you give him milk to pasteurize because he's got the pasteurizing machine. And he's like, all right, well, my way of making money is I'm going to take 20% of all the milk that you pasteurize, that you bring in to pasteurize, so I can keep that 20% and I can sell my own half. You keep the 80. And it's like, all right, well, this is how we're going to do it. And then they exchange that, and then the law comes in saying, hey, you can't take 20% of the milk. You can only take 10% of the milk. And will it affect this business's profit margins? Yeah,
Of
it
course.
will. But will this make it so they can't actually properly do their business? Only if they're irresponsible. And I think this is another good example, like what we saw with the banking financial crisis and the Great Recession, is that if these companies fail because they can't do unethical business practices, then they deserve to fail. And we've seen so often in this country of the government picking the side of the banks and the major institutions saying, oh, well, we need these companies to continue to work because otherwise they'll hurt the American economy. Let them hurt the American economy, then let them fail because I thought we were capitalists. I thought the idea of, well, clearly these people weren't doing the right thing, then we should let the person who does do the right thing come up and get the support of the consumers.
Yeah.
And if these credit card companies need 27% interest to be able to conduct business, then it's a matter of like, do you should adapt to what's going on now. And if interest gets capped at 10%, you change your business model to deal with that.
Yeah.
Sacrifice in the understanding of dealing in an economy where there's laws. The laws change. You can't just always expect things to go exactly how you want and exactly how you be. That's the point of lobbying. So you can expect things to go a certain way, and you can expect things to go one way. So that even if you do know that laws are going to be changed, you can argue for them to be changed in a beneficial manner to you, and you can plan for them. So then when we have somebody like Trump who says, hey, we're going to cap interest at 10% out of nowhere, these companies are just thinking, well, we don't agree with that. Hold on
Yeah.
now. And I don't think this would really hurt credit card companies. Those people make billions a month. You know what I mean? Like, oh my God, you're gonna make 20% less money because you can't charge people interest at 27%. Sue me. I
Yeah,
don't
they'll just
think
add more to the overdraft fees and taking your money out of the ATM fees and all that nonsense, which is how they mostly get their money, unfortunately, from individuals that just don't have enough.
I
But
mean, there's a lot of things they could do. There really is, like cash advances or balance
yeah,
transfers or just a whole 9 yards. And so for these people to say like, "Oh, well, we're gonna have to readjust our business model to deal with the new laws, and that's not a good thing." Like the fact that it hurts your bottom line is a good thing because your bottom line as a credit card company is making money off of charging people 27% interest. And if you can deal with charging people 27% interest as a business model, then maybe you shouldn't even be in business because it's a very clearly very predatory scheme of business.
oh yeah, without a
And
doubt, it's predatory.
absolutely, interest in general is very predatory. It's a very old system that's only backed by some people, and it's very clearly banned in both the Bible and the Quran. And aside from that, is that I do think that this is not something that will really affect these credit card companies, and they're just desperate to argue whatever they can argue to keep their profit margins as large as they have been, because those credit card companies got some pretty big damn margins.
Oh no, yeah, of course, and we'll see once this is fully implemented on the 20th, and what are the reactions really from higher ups in the financial field and consumers themselves. So what I was speaking to about Jerome Powell is Trump is set to interview BlackRock CIO of well, his name is Rick Ryder. I want to say Rick Reader.
Rick
Ryder
Ryder.
looks like Ryder
Okay.
the way it's spelled. Rieder looks like Ryder. But Rick Ryder is the senior managing director and chief investment officer for global fixed income at BlackRock. So he oversees 2.4 trillion in assets and serves as the foreign firm's global executive committee and investment council. So President Trump is interviewing this individual this week at the White House as a potential successor to Jerome Powell, whose term ends May 15th, 2026. So there's going to be a new Federal Reserve chair, someone that is, you could say, once again picked by Trump. And let's just see if he's going to be, name calling this individual just as much as he is Jerome Powell. Honestly, I would be very surprised. It's a BlackRock CIO, so Chief Information Officer. So, we'll see what he's going to bring to the table and how he's going to set rates in the coming months, because these next year, 2 years economically are going to be very, very, very important for our country across the
I'd
board.
be very surprised if Powell steps down. I can see him just living longer just to spite Trump. Like
Yeah,
a,
I mean,
a
I could see him
man.
living out his term, honestly.
There's that.
He's a
There's
very
that.
dutiful person, I feel like, that understands that he can catch flack from whichever party is within power. But no matter what, he stays true to that level of independence and understands that, he is the Fed chair, he is independent, and they can say whatever they want, but I'm here in my post. So we have to deal with it basically.
I mean, there's that saying like hell fears a woman scorned. I'm sure Trump fears a pal scorned. That's probably why he's trying to get rid of him because he knows pal can do whatever he wants, and pal has clearly shown he'll do whatever he wants, even if it goes against what Trump demands. So I think that's the big reason why he's trying to get rid of him is because he's like, hey, this guy isn't just doing what I say I want to be done.
Yeah.
Let's can him.
No, I agree. They're definitely trying to can him. I would be very surprised if he just steps away from it.
Oh yeah. Oh,
We
he's
will
not
see.
going to, in my opinion.
Yeah, I'll be interested
If
to see what
if
this
he dies
individual.
a health death in the next year,
Yeah.
I'm blaming it on some kind of FBI, CIA, inner deep state bullshit.
No, definitely,
Like
definitely.
if Pal dies from falling from a window or like a heart attack, it was the government.
Oh, without a doubt, without a doubt, some
Yeah,
House of Cards stuff when he pushed
yeah, House of Cards
the
stuff.
Secretary of State down the steps. If for any of our listeners out there, I think that's season 4, 5, one
I
of those.
remember at the end of season 1, beginning of season 2, there's the one
Oh yeah, when
Philly
he pushed the girl.
congressman. No, the
Oh,
one Philly, Frank goes out with the one guy I'm blanking on it. Russo. Yeah, Russo.
oh yeah, he
Yeah.
sets them up. Yeah, he catches 2 bodies back to back from
Yeah,
the ending of season 1 when he pushes the girl, and then the beginning of season 2. No, that's the end of season 1 as well. I think he sets up Russo in the car with the bottle in his
I
garage.
think that was either end of season 1 or mid of season 2. I think it was end of season 1. I think end of season 1.
Yeah, I think it was
But
in
yeah,
season 1. Yeah, he
so
did
what
that, and
he
then he pushed the,
so yeah,
Zoe
what
in front of the
Frank
train.
does, he kills Zoe. I missed that.
Yeah, you missed that? Bro, that
No,
was my first
I
thing.
just haven't watched season 2. That's what it is. I didn't
I
realize he
was
kills
like,
Zoe.
is she in
Damn.
season 1 or season No, because
Nah,
he
she doesn't die
becomes
in season 1. That's a bit of a spoiler, but to be honest, I watched House of Cards season 1 months ago. I probably should have watched season 2 by
'cause
now.
I'm like, he becomes president.
And like at the end of season 2, yeah. Because he becomes VP at the end of season 1.
So that means he kills regardless. I'm
But
definitely
yeah,
gonna
so now what happens is that they while we're making this House of Cards reference, is that at the end of near the end of season 1, they spoilers for those who haven't seen this because I just got spoiled by Mikhail for season 2, is that Frank, the main character, he goes out drinking with the candidate for Pennsylvania governor who's also a congressman named Russo. The plan they had to pass a bill to get support for Russo, the bill fails, and Russo
yes,
falls into another like alcoholic depression state.
Navy
So
Yard,
what
shipyard, whatever
happens
it is.
is that Frank gets Russo extremely drunk and has him pass out in his car in a garage, and then Frank leaves the car windows of the car open while the car runs, and Russo gets killed by the fumes by being passed out in a room filled with CO2. And so it's just like, reminds me of all those deaths you see, like, oh, it's another death in Russia. Somebody fell from a window and it just so happened to be a
Yeah.
major political opponent. Oh, somebody just
Yeah.
died in America and they had 2 gunshots to the head and it's being ruled suicide. And it's like, come on now. Like this is clearly not something that was just like, oh, black and white.
No, not at all, and definitely a great TV show. Everyone should definitely go watch it. As I said, it's one of the closest TV shows that actually goes out there when it comes to the corrupt things and behind the scenes, all that good stuff. But as we have our last about like 7 minutes here, I do want to just hit on some global things because there's some pretty important stuff going on here. So Greenland chooses Denmark over the United States,
No
and
surprise.
there's also, Mohammed, I don't know if you've heard this, but apparently the like a reasoning that Trump is wanting to go for Greenland is because billionaires are wanting to set up what is called Freedom City. I don't know if you've heard that.
Freedom City. I think I saw a
Yes.
few things about it, but I don't know much about it.
So tech billionaires like Peter Thiel, the father of JD Vance,
The
and Elon
father of
Musk,
surveillance and JD Vance, yeah.
the father of Donald Trump's presidency, are both backing Trump's interest in Greenland. They are envisioning creating a unregulated freedom cities as libertarian experiments free from democratic oversight. So that's kind
This
of interesting.
sounds like a Fallout vault in the
Literally,
work. Oh
literally.
my
So
god. You ever
if
watch
I
or play Fallout, MJ?
I've watched a little bit of it, haven't played it, but I do know
So,
the premises of it.
30-second background of why I
Yeah.
say that. So, Vault-Tec is a private company that guaranteed rights to live in a vault for protection from nuclear war, and that's exactly what they ended up doing. But because they were having a lot of trouble for financials to sell seats and reservations in these vaults because they were so expensive to dig and make, they started to sell vaults in general to billionaires. And the deal was you can do whatever experiment in the government. They're like, the deal was you can do whatever experiment you want to figure out certain whatever objective you want, like how humans operate under XYZ conditions and more. And some of them were barbaric. Like, for example, one of them was how would a vault be if we was just filled with a cloning machine and one man? And how would that cloning machine fare and how would that man fare? Like simple, fairly inhumane stuff like that. And another one was just these people have to live in a vault and they have to have a change of guard every 20 years, and the people get murdered every 20 years completely. Just fairly obscene stuff to see how a lot of experiments. So hearing them say, and that was built under the idea of, scientific freedom and lack of oversight from the government to allow for max amounts of freedom to find out these goals. So then to hear this is kind of hitting on the nose of that.
No, yeah, it's so as I was saying, libertarian experiments, free from democratic oversight, environmental regulations, and labor protections. U.S. Ambassador to Denmark, Ken Howery, a PayPal co-founder with Theo N. Musk, that's insane, has discussed establishing low regulation zones for rare earth mining and anarcho-capitalist hubs. So this is very much a vast contrast with European efforts to redirect U.S. focus, positioning Greenland as a laboratory for Silicon Valley's deregulated visions. And I just think that that's completely wrong. We don't need to take Greenland. So we have billionaires being in another massive land running experiments. Like, what are we doing? He's literally giving Greenland to the billionaires when he consistently states that it's going to be for America, for the American people, which is just like the Venezuelan oil. Now, before I get to the Venezuelan oil, there was actually, with them capturing Maduro, I don't know if you've heard this, Mohammed, but witnesses claimed of sonic weapons being used
I heard
before
about
Maduro
that.
was actually captured. That apparently it was some loud noise, like a shock wave, you could say, of some sort. And then the the guard was basically stating that he felt everyone was basically vomiting, throwing up blood from their eyes and mouths, and just falling to the ground. And they just came in and swooped up Maduro, which is pretty crazy that we have sonic weapons like that can do those types
Probably
of
banned
things.
by the Geneva
Oh,
Convention,
probably
realistically.
was banned by the Geneva
I mean, at
Convention.
this point, they're just the Geneva suggestions, right? I
Yes,
mean,
and yeah,
like,
Geneva suggestion without a doubt. And then even
yeah.
continuing with Venezuela, yeah, taxpayer dollars are going to be paying for it. So President Trump suggests that U.S. taxpayers could reimburse oil companies for investing in and repairing or the oil infrastructure following the ousting of Nicolas Maduro. When we last spoke, that amount is about $83 billion, I want to say, is going to take to fully reconstruct their refineries and their infrastructure. So yes, that is another price tag ticket that is stuck to the voter, just like how the wall was, just like how all these other things that he's touting, all these other countries are going to be paying for. You have seen firsthand that you are paying for them yourself. So everything that he says is has been just a lie from the border wall, from Venezuela, from um, the $2,000 in the tariff checks, to even possibly, while him ambassador saying that Americans are going to get the highest tax return ever received in the inception of the United States. We will obviously, most of those things have not come to pass, but the tax refund, we will see if that's actually viable from what they have been stating. But it's been loss after loss on a lot of their big ticket issues, and they're losing ground on things that they have even made progress with. And just some of the last few things, want to say really just about Iran. Donald Trump is pulling the plug on the Iran talks, and he encourages the protesters in Tehran to just continuously protest. And Iran themselves have actually started to call out the Mossad agents in Iran that have been sparking these protests, because people have been stating that you wouldn't see Muslims burning down their own mosque. I'm like, that's a very good point. Actually, Muhammad, what would you say to that?
Yeah, this is what I'd add. And I mean,
Because
Iran,
it makes sense. It makes sense that that's like, if if Christians were taking over, we're not going to burn down churches. Like, yes,
yeah,
they're with the old regime, but why would we burn it down? That's still our place of worship in a sense. But yes,
Iran does
elaborate.
have a lot of people who don't identify as Muslim, even though they're Muslim culture because it's the Middle East. They're
Yeah.
not. They don't identify by the religion. But from what I've heard, the reason why they were burning down mosques was because the government was using them as like a weapons depot. So like they'd store weapons and such in these mosques.
Mm, yeah.
And so I can see a lot of people let's just say it like this. In my home country area, the Bosnia, the Balkans, the Orthodox Christian Serbs would gladly burn down the churches of the Christian Croatians, gladly. And it's because they view them as, not even necessarily, they just view them as undesirables, like the ultra nationalists. So like radicals don't necessarily follow logic, and also they are fueled by strong emotions. So it doesn't surprise me if there's also some logic attitude like, oh hey, like even if it's not entirely proven to be true, they're storing weapons in these mosques, let's destroy the
Yeah.
mosques. I can see that happening. I can
Yeah, that's
also see
fine.
it happening that hey, we've lived under this tyrannical Islamic regime for so long, let's show them how angry we are at them, let's destroy the mosques. Now, I do think the amount of mosques that have been destroyed
Mhm.
is that's the suspicious part.
Yeah, that's what I was
Because there's
getting
not,
at.
I highly, highly doubt that the Iranian government would use hundreds of mosques to just store weapons in. Like, what the hell?
Exactly.
Well, where you store? Why are you storing the weapons in so many mosques? Like, clearly,
Right.
that's not how it works. That's not how it works. Like, no country uses religious buildings to store. Like, Israel uses civilian defense buildings for cover, but they keep all their weapons in their military bases still.
Yeah.
So, like, a major Israeli military base is literally directly under a hospital. Fun fact, I'm not making that up. A major Israeli base is under a hospital in Tel Aviv.
I
And
could see that.
so yeah, so it's very normal for there to be in civilian areas, but they keep the weapons in the base or the military building itself. So I think two things. I think one, it's unusual how many have been burned, even though
Mhm.
the logic behind it makes sense for when it was a few of them. But 300 plus, that's just pushing it. Two, I think the fact that there's been so much Western reporting and propaganda about it
Yeah.
is extremely suspicious. Because
Yeah,
all
I
of a
would
sudden it
agree.
went from
Yeah.
like nobody cares about Iran to, oh my God, look at these Iranian protests. You should care about the Iranian protests. These people are fighting for their rights, XYZ. I'm like, so why aren't we seeing any of the Israeli protests? Why aren't
Mhm.
we seeing any of the XYZ? Why aren't we seeing any protests in any other countries? Why is this such a big deal? It's because you guys are trying to show us as like, oh, we should hate the Iranian government. Don't get me wrong. I don't like Khamenei. Like, I don't adore that guy by any means. But if we're going to be talking about dissatisfaction of the ruling government, there's plenty of countries that that display that and show that. Now you
And
can
one
say
of
like,
them has
oh,
a corruption trial.
Yeah, I was like, "Oh, you can argue that,
Yeah,
well, none of them are as in a crazy of a situation as Iran." I'm
yeah,
like, "Dude, Netanyahu, the judge that was presiding over his murder trial, just got murdered in a car
yeah,
accident."
car accident, yeah. Yep,
Yeah, and I'm like, if you wanna talk about corrupt leaders being thrown out of power through protests and more, that seems quite convenient to just leave out the fact that there's been protests in Israel and that the judge presiding over the case was literally just murdered.
yeah.
And it's just I do definitely think there is some Western intelligence going on in Iran that's fueling this. Now, do I believe that, like similar to when the first time the Iranian Islamic government got overthrown with Shah Mohammed, that was proven to be backed by America. So whether or not this is also currently backed by the West, I can't say confidently right now, but
I would say
the signs,
it's
the
quacking
signs are
like a
there.
duck and it's looking like a duck, no lie. Because both of
Yeah,
them are like when the protests were going on, they're like, "Yeah, right, we're not gonna do anything." It's like, "Yeah, because 'cause you're already doing something," and that's the protest. Because you had the Kurds going into there, fueling the protest. You had Mossad in there from what the Iranian Guard was saying as well. So it's a whole bunch of things that were going on. But, this has been a great conversation. I hope that our listeners have been able to get a mouthful and headful of information from us today. Thank you guys for tuning in to Behind the Ballot, where we keep politics engaged, balanced, and informative. Stay curious, stay critical, and please stay involved. I'm Mikkel Jenkins, and until next time, keep looking beyond the headlines and behind the ballot.
God bless America. God bless you all. This is Muhammad Alec, and it's been fun talking. Hope you all have a good night.